This is chapter 4 of Am Malala. Chapter 4 is called A Warning from God. Again, I'm reading this with the permission of Scholastic Books. One autumn day, I was still in primary school. Our desks started to tremble and shake. "Earthquake!" we yelled. We ran outside, some of us falling as we crowded through the narrow door and gathered around our teachers for safety and comfort, like chicks around a mother hen. A few of the girls were crying. We lived in a region where earthquakes happened often, but this felt different. Even after we returned to class, the building continued to shake. The rumbling didn't stop. Miss Alfat, my all-time favorite teacher, told us to stay calm. She assured us that it would soon be over. But when another strong earthquake hit within a few minutes of the first, the students were sent home. When I arrived home, I found my mother sitting in the courtyard where she felt the safest because there was no roof above her. She was reciting verses from the Holy Quran as tears streamed down her face. The aftershocks kept coming and continued past nightfall, and every time they did, my mother ran outside and insisted we go with her. My father told her to not upset the children, but we were already upset because the ground was shaking. That earthquake was 8 October 2005, and it turned out to be one of the worst in history. It was a 7.6 on the Richter scale and was felt as far away as Kabul and Delhi. Aftershocks continued for at least a month. Our city of Mangora was largely spared, but the northern areas of Pakistan, including our beloved Shanghala, were devastated. When we finally heard from our family and friends there, they said that they had thought it was the end of the world. They described the roar of rocks sliding down hills and everyone running out of their houses reciting the Holy Quran, the screams as roofs crashed down, and the howls of buffalo and goats. They were terrified. And then the destruction stopped, and they waited for help. The government was slow to arrive, but help came immediately from rescue workers from a conservative religious group called the TNSM, or the Movement for the Enforcement of Islamic Law, led by Sufi Muhammad and his brother-in-law, Maulana Fazullah. Eventually, the government tried to get help. Let me back up and reread. Eventually, the government tried to help, and aid from the Americans, who had troops and helicopters in nearby Afghanistan, had made it in, but most of the volunteers and medical help came from organizations that were linked to militant groups, like the TNSM. They helped clear and rebuild destroyed villages. They led prayers and buried bodies. They took in many of the 11,000 orphan children. In our cultures, orphans usually were adopted by extended family, but the earthquake had been so bad that entire families had been wiped out or lost everything and were in no position to care for additional children. Many of the orphans went to live in fundamentalist madrasas. Mullahs from the TNSM preached that the earthquake was a warning from God. If we did not mend our ways and introduce Sharia, or Islamic law, more severe punishment would come. The whole country was in shock for a long time after the earthquake. We were vulnerable, which made it that much easier for someone with bad intentions to use a nation's fear for his gain. That was chapter 4. Look out for chapter 5 and make sure that you do your discussion questions.